Okay, so this video is for the S20 Ultra. Now, if you haven't watched my video talking about the S20 Plus and S20 regular, pause this video. Go and watch that first. I'll wait. Okay, welcome back. So you should have heard a lot of things I talked about on the S20 and S20 Plus. Now, most of them apply to this phone. The only difference is camera, screen size, battery, and that's all. So let's actually start off with screen size. It's a 6.9-inch screen, which is ginormous. Now, I don't actually see anybody using a 6.9-inch screen with one hand comfortably. That's not going to happen at all. Like, that's definitely a two-handed device for you. Now, as a Nigerian man, carrying a 6.9-inch screen, what is the use? No, seriously, what is the use? I mean, it's not like as if everyone in Nigeria is like a gaming oriented. This kind of screen is more for people who play games a lot, so you can fit a lot more things into your phone, and that actually helps. And then with the very high resolution, which is a 120 Hz display, just like the S20 and S20 Plus, I mean, well, I'm not going to argue too much or complain too much about it. I'm fine with what I have. But I keep on saying it, if I were given a choice to spend my own money on any of these three phones, I'm actually going to get the S20 regular because that's far cheaper. Aside from the screen size, we have the camera. Now, it's the same cameras that exist in the S20 Plus with an extra added one, which is the space zoom camera. Now, it's basically like Huawei's P30 Pro that had a 5x optical zoom lens. Samsung says that this one has up to 10x optical zoom, and it is bonkers. I didn't want to talk about the camera square in the S20 and S20 Plus video, but since we're here, let me actually address this. Now, Samsung has always used a traditional vertical or horizontal camera arrangement, and that's what other manufacturers have been using too. Then the iPhone 11 drops and almost everybody is now using a camera square or camera rectangle, and I'm like, why? Just why? Now, Apple had a good reason for making their camera that way. Watch that up there, or it will be in the description below. But then I don't see the use for other manufacturers doing it. Now, the only phone that has released besides the iPhone 11 and the Google Pixel, I assume for the Pixel that they had already taken this choice before the iPhone leaks came out. Apart from these two phones, the only other phone that I can see the use of the camera square is this S20 Ultra. Now, the space zoom camera works in a way where it's like a periscope where you're placing multiple cameras at multiple directions to like be able to zoom in a bit more than you would normally be able to, which means that you need to move the components around in the phone. So I can get the entire point of the camera square. The camera square also has a very large bump, larger than the S20 and S20 Ultra, so that's totally understandable. And as much as I do not like camera squares, I have to say, if it will give me the compromise of being able to zoom in optically 10 times, I'll be fine with it. Now, you may be wondering, what about the 100 times zoom? Okay, let me talk as a Nigerian student. I'm in school and I maybe go to a lecture late, and I'm at the very back of the class and the lecturer is writing on the board and I'm trying to see what's going on, but that's not possible. So I whip out my phone, I hit my camera app, and then I zoom in. I zoom in 3 times, then I zoom in 5 times, then I zoom in 10 times. This is optical zoom, and I'm still not able to see the board, which I don't actually think is possible in real life situations. But then I'm now like, okay, I can't still see the board. Let me zoom in 100 times. And I zoom in 100 times, and yes, I'm closer to the board, but then this 100 times zoom is digital zoom, so it's going to look so noisy and so bad with quality that I don't actually think it's worth it at this point. Well, we of course know that since this is Samsung is like a major company. They can actually do a lot of work into sharpening the image, denoising, and the rest of them. But a digital zoomed image is still worse than an optically zoomed image. There is no getting around that no matter what you do. So to me, I don't see the use of having 100 times zoom on your phone. The 10 times is fine. 50 times on the Huawei P30 was insane. Let's be honest, it was insane, all right. But then 100 times zoom, I mean, what exactly are you using 100 times zoom to do in your phone? No matter what you're doing, I mean, there's nothing that I see, even as a student, that will make me want to zoom in 100 times. Okay, maybe I want to take a picture of the moon. Maybe. But then, apart from that, there's nothing else I can see that is worth it. Now, I'm getting a bit sidetracked because I'm talking about the zoom lens. Let's talk about the other part of the camera that is also very interesting, which is that 108 megapixel sensor. Now, this isn't the first time we're seeing 108 megapixels on a smartphone. The first time we saw it was with the Xiaomi Mi Note 10, which had 108 megapixels. A lot of people reviewed that phone saying that the megapixel count is great. I mean, it's doing pixel binning, where it's giving us about 27 megapixel images, and it makes the shots look so crisp and beautiful and all that. But then I've said before that a high megapixel count doesn't mean that you're going to get better shots out of the camera. And a lot of people also said that this camera isn't really like doing the best it could. So Marquez, if I remember correctly, said that it's almost like as though the software was holding the hardware back. Now, this is Samsung, 108 megapixels, and they've had the experience, they've had like 10 years plus experience of making smartphones and making different kinds of phones for different types of price segments. So they shouldn't have too much of an issue with 108 megapixels, right? Okay. So some other things now come into play. When you're uploading pictures in social media, you're uploading 12 megapixel shots. Like no matter what you do, if you have a 16 megapixel camera, it gets downscaled to 12 megapixels. 48 megapixels gets downscaled. So what is the use of 108 megapixels if you're going to post it and it will lose so much quality when you upload it? So Samsung said, okay, instead of doing that, let's do Nona binning, which means that they created 9 different squares of pixels and then merged them together to form one picture. Now this reduces file size by a bit, because I think a typical 108 megapixel shot should be giving you about 33 megabytes, which is a lot. I mean, if I take 10 pictures, that's about 330. Wow. Okay, that is a lot of megapixels and a lot of space to be consumed. Thank goodness these phones have like a lot of storage in them. Even though using 100 megapixels, I don't see how you should leave your phone at 512 gigabytes. For me, I'd rather leave my phone at 1 terabyte, so at least I know that if I take a lot of pictures, I won't have to worry about my space going up like just poof. One thing I'll actually be interested in seeing is how much this camera can replicate an original camera. Now, if you know correctly, you know that portrait mode comes from the ability of a camera to focus on a subject and then blur out every other thing in the background. Now, because smartphone lenses aren't as large, they can't really do that blurring effect on their own. But then that's where using software came in and portrait mode was born. But now, with 108 megapixels, that is a very large sensor. Like, it requires a very, very large sensor, which means that it's closer to and should now be able to do things that the regular camera should be able to do. So basically, what if, now, it's not like as if this is a big deal, but then you focus in on your subject and every other thing gets blurred out. And it's this very beautiful blur, not the software made blur that is absolutely horrendous sometimes because of edge detection and so on and so forth, and lighting conditions and so on and so forth. This also helps with lighting, with low lighting situations. Now, it's actually a blessing and a curse, because for the 108 megapixel camera, there is a lot more noise when it's in low light situations, and so the software may go crazy and may not be able to handle the noise properly. But that's totally up to the camera. For now, we'll have to wait till we actually get it in hand and see the reviews and see how it performs in low light. But for now, these are just my general impressions. A Nigerian man, a typical person, will be fine with these cameras. The camera system is versatile, everything about it is versatile, and that's all I'll say. Now, I'll actually touch on the battery. I didn't touch on the battery in the S20 and S20 Plus video because I wanted to do a comparison between all of them in this video. Now, the S20 Ultra has a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, 4,500 on the S20 Plus, and 4,000 on the S20 regular. Now, let's check something. All of these phones have 120 Hz screens, which means that it will drain battery a lot. Looking at it from this viewpoint, if you were to choose which phone to buy, I would actually tell you to go for the S20 Ultra, because that's like something that won't die on you, hopefully, in a whole day. Even though the resolution is still reduced to 1080p at 120 Hz, it will still obliterate your battery. That's facts. Now, one thing I actually wanted to touch on, which I don't see a lot of people being like mind blown about, is what the hell are we using 16 gigs of RAM to do on a phone? I mean, a typical day of use, even if I were to run, say, PUBG, Fortnite at the same time, I'd still be using not up to 8 gigs. 12 was all right, maybe just to help the Android operating system to work well, but then 16? What exactly are you using 16 gigs of RAM to do on your smartphone? I'm yet to understand this, and I think that's just overkill. At least they have to try to make the phone look worth your money, which is exactly why they're doing this kind of stuff. But for me, I don't see you or anyone being able to use 16 gigs of RAM in a single day. I don't see anyone who has a 12 gigabyte RAM phone being able to use up to that amount of 12 gigs of RAM. Now, some people may actually want to do a comparison to the iPhones, the iPhone 11, but I'll tell you right now, hold off on doing any comparisons. Wait till the iPhone 12 comes out before you start doing any comparisons. Because right now, the Samsung Galaxy S20 will beat the iPhone 11 in almost every way. The only place where it may not be able to beat it is in the processor, which the A13 Bionic is a total monster, and I don't think any CPU right now is coming close to it. Okay, apart from the 865, but then it's still not greater than it. And if they do bring out an A14 Bionic, the gap is a bit widened, so you get my point. So let's wait first for the iPhone 12 before we talk about doing a comparison between these two phones. Now, let me know in the comment sections below what you think. Are you going to get the S20 Ultra or will you get the S20 regular? Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time. Peace.